presence of Dr. Vijay Kumar Singh, Professor and Dean of School of Law, UPES University, Dehradun, India. Dr. Vijay Kumar Singh is an experienced professional, having worked at the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, IICA, a think tank and capacity building institute under the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India as head School of Corporate Law, and also with the Competition Regulator of India, the Competition Commission of India. Dr. Singh has also been associated with the Hidayatullah National Law University, Raipur, as a faculty in corporate laws and securities regulation. I would like to welcome Dr. Vijay Kumar Singh to make a presentation on the predictions of AI in legal sphere in 2022.
Thank you, Christina, for such a nice introduction. And first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Singh for allowing this opportunity to address you all in this webinar. The topic for the webinar is quite contemporary. We are talking about conversational AI, the next wave of artificial intelligence. And this is a buzzword which is there at all places. And today's topic, which I will be speaking on, is on predictions of AI in the legal sphere in 2022. Though I am not an astrologer, but still we will try to see that what is happening in this field and try to give you some sense of it, that what are the major things which are happening and how we are looking at AI specifically from a legal perspective and what major things it can transform or make a difference about. And this is what is the presentation all about. If I talk about India, and this is a tableau from the latest, Republic Day celebrations which we made, and this was a tableau by Ministry of Education, and you can see it is a transformation from Vedas to metaverse. So we are now moving into the age of metaverse. And the transformation is huge, and this transformation is quick. Over the last few years, a lot has changed in the academic scene, in the technology scene, in the legal sphere, and artificial intelligence, or I must say technology as a whole, has transformed a lot of ways in which we have been working in the society and working in the different sectors, whether it may be manufacturing or services. So there is a lot of transformation because of the technology, and education is part of it. And what we are discussing today on today's webinar is on conversational AI. So I will be just briefly talking about the concept of artificial intelligence for the participants who have just joined and maybe not working in this area. So it is quite interesting to note that this is not a new concept. The concept came long back in 1950s, but as far as artificial intelligence is concerned, and if you see the definition which was given at that point in time, specifically talked about the word intelligence. So the definition given by Marvin Minsky on artificial intelligence says that it is an ability of machines to perform certain tasks with the need of intelligence showcased by humans and animals. So it is basically replicating the intelligence of human by machines, and that is quite a difficult call, and it was not an easy task to move ahead with this. Artificial intelligence involves a lot of things, and specifically when I talk about involving legal into it, it makes the matter more complex. Artificial intelligence is an intersection between computer science, logic, statistics, and plenty of things is merged and coming together into artificial intelligence. Now, when we say the term intelligent, it basically means that the system or the computer will be able to learn, reason, plan, and correct in an almost human way. There are two kinds of AI when we speak about. One is called narrow AI, and the other one is called general AI. In narrow AI, it is also referred to as weak AI because when we are visualizing AI as in its full form, we are talking about it is closest to human intelligence, which we are yet to achieve or go to that particular point. But when we say narrow AI, it is basically performing one task at a time. So it also includes conversational AI, and it is kind of a technology which we use everywhere. Either you are talking about flagging content online, or detecting faces in pictures, or to simple customer care inquiries, or even your smartphones have got AI capabilities, smaller AI capabilities. So at present, we are all working in the area of narrow AI. That is what the data says, the statistics says. So when we will move from narrow to general AI is predicted to be somewhere around 2040. But we are still keeping our fingers crossed, because from a smaller population perspective, a lot of narrow AI has moved up, but still there are reservations of people on multiple counts, because we have legislation now by European Union on Artificial Intelligence Act, but that is also very cautious in its approach, because regulation of AI is one of the major challenges which is being faced by the community. And there are genuine questions and concerns about human rights, about constitutional rights of people. If we talk about in criminal law, it is about self-incrimination. So there are plenty of questions around implementation of AI. But at the same time, the developers of AI and people who are using and are very positive about the AI developments want a safe space, or we call it in fintech language, it is called sandbox. So there is a requirement of a sandbox kind of a situation where you allow these AI technologies to be experimented, and that can happen at the narrow AI stage, narrow AI area. Now, if we look at this dimension and move ahead with understanding the artificial intelligence, there are three terms which is regularly used. So we say artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. So the evolution of artificial intelligence to machine learning to deep learning has happened from 1950s to 2010, and now we are in 2022. So last 10 years, there is a huge development. There's a lot of development in the technology, a lot of development in newer processes happening. So from artificial intelligence to machine learning to deep learning, the differentiation, or you can say the progress in technology, has been basically to automation. Because if you look at artificial intelligence and machine learning basically works on the technology of feature extraction, and that is something which is not required in deep learning. And at the base of these things is big data. So there is a lot of regulation around big data as well, because your artificial intelligence system or deep learning system can only work and function when you have that amount of data, because the machine requires that data to learn itself and move forward and bring forward the technology. Let me talk about conversational AI, and we have moved from Eliza to Alexa now, and you can see there is a huge amount of transformation here. So in the legal field, most of the utility of AI which we are seeing is in the form of the voice assistants, chatbots, which are able to respond. And from the technical perspective, the core to this is natural language processing, which in 1950s Alan Turing started with. It was kind of an hypothetical computer program which could interact with the humans. So at present, these technologies are now getting normalized. If you see, either it is Alexa or it is Siri in your Apple devices. So you are able to converse and that information is coming. However, we are talking about the future. And if we look at the AI in legal sphere, Emerge is the organization which does a lot of research in this area. And they predict 3 areas to work on, which will be helpful for legal field as far as AI is concerned. One deals with helping lawyers perform due diligence and research. The other talks about providing additional insights and shortcuts through analytics. And the third one is automating creative processes, including some writing in legal work. So most of the task which will be done is about analysis of legal text and giving some predictions, you can say, predictive technology. That is what I talk about. There are 6 areas which have been identified as far as the legal field is concerned and interface with the artificial intelligence. One major important area which is called due diligence, because a lot of transaction in the legal sphere or legal space happens is relating to due diligence. So either it is an M&A space, or it is a competition matter, or it is a matter relating to any violation. You do a lot of due diligence, and that due diligence AI systems can help a lot, and that has been utilized by a number of platforms. Prediction technology, legal analytics, document automation. In intellectual property, the lawyers use a huge amount of data searching is required, because you want to find out whether this trademark is already registered or not, whether this patent is already registered or not. So you want to do a patent search. All these things will get faster if we are utilizing the AI technologies. And definitely electronic billing, that is something which lawyers utilize now, systems in place. If I look at my office or my desk and see the transformation which has happened as far as AI is concerned, and this is daily conversational AI, and that has happened because if you see, this is the legal referencer, which generally we use. It is a kind of a diary which has got dates, and you fix everything, your timing and your appointments and everything. This has completely changed now, and I rely on the Cortana, interface, which reminds me in the email that yes, today you are having a meeting. Surprisingly, the Cortana did not remind me about today's webinar, because it seems that they thought it is a Saturday or a Sunday. That I realized today itself when I am studying this. Quite an interesting development happening around it, and in our daily lives, we are utilizing the artificial intelligence in smaller and bit pieces. But in a larger way, when we are looking at artificial intelligence utility and its function, I believe blockchain and smart contracts, this is a major area which is going to be seeing in 2022. A lot of companies are already utilizing, a lot of law firms are utilizing these services. One of the examples, if I have to take, is by way of JP Morgan's case of coin, that is contract intelligence in 2016. So this technology has got about the method and mechanism by which they can analyze so many documents or commercial credit arrangements, and the legal work which is being happening, or the paralegals will spend a lot of time, will get reduced, and error will get reduced. This is one of the major benefits which will happen with this. But at the same time, there is also a concern that what will happen to those amount of hours which were utilized by paralegals, whether there will be a job loss. So this dichotomy is there, and discussions around this are happening in this. One major thing which will also happen is relating to language and jurisdiction. So that won't be a barrier if the artificial intelligence things are in place. Now we are utilizing the language conversion softwares as conversational AI, and I probably that is also one important thing which is going to be there in the future, as far as when we talk about legal and artificial intelligence interface. In terms of the international commercial transaction, the electronic data interchange, this is another important development which is there. And EDI, though in space since last 20-30 years, but it has increased. Artificial intelligence has increased the processes of issuance of letter of credit. It helps in automation, validation, and the things have become very faster in terms of the international transactions of letter of credit, or you can talk about the transmission of money. So this international trade transactions have become faster, and artificial intelligence has a lot of space in that area to grow in terms of legal sphere is concerned. There is also a development which is happening on prediction technology, and in terms of prediction technology, if we look at it, there are a number of softwares or agencies which are working in it. You talk about introspection or Lex Machina by LexisNexis or Rebel, that is kind of a code analytics. And if we examine these softwares, it is quite revealing that you can actually predict that which cases are going which way, which bench will be more suitable or useful for you to fight that particular case. It in fact tells you also that what is the strength of your opponent counsel or a firm. Probably these things are, it appears quite scary, but at the same time, it is quite revealing, and the future seems to be quite exciting as far as prediction technology is concerned, in terms of looking at a litigation, whether it will have a success rate or not, or whether what are the major challenges which will be there in that litigation. E-discovery in terms of predictive coding is already in place, and technology assisted review is happening. It started all with US Da Silva Moore case in somewhere around 2004 or 5, I think. And the latest decision by Irish High Court on this is Irish Bank Resolution Corporation Limited versus Quinn. And there they are talking about utilizing the technology assisted review for e-discovery. And the time period which will be taken is significantly reduced in terms of discovery of enormous number of documents. However, at the same time, there is a responsibility, or you can say ethical duties of the lawyers who are involved in this, that they should be sufficiently trained. And that is what I predict or think about the legal sphere or educational institutions who are teaching law to look at this dimension, that there are sufficiently trained lawyers who are going into the market who can conduct this technology assisted review. And in fact, State Bar Council of California, I was having a look at it. They are having a responsibility and conduct statement which mandates that unless the lawyer is trained in these things, they should not take up this technology assisted review, because they may compromise confidentiality of clients and may not be helpful in the whole process. Robots in the boardroom is another important thing which is happening. And though it happened in 2014, the validating investment tool for advancing life sciences by Deep Knowledge Ventures, they claimed that yes, we have put an robot into the boardroom which decides or gives suggestions in terms of the boardroom decisions, particularly on investment on certain features. However, this did not pick up after 2014, but we are looking at a scenario wherein the artificial intelligence robot, or maybe the artificial intelligence system, acts as a flawless company secretary, ensures that all processes are being followed. Either it is the number of independent directors, ensuring that the independent directors are actually independent directors or not. These are the things which are in store for future, which I am visualizing, which will take a movement forward. This is the last leg of my presentation, and I think I'm already over time. So AI and fintech market, this is another important area in which there is a lot of development happening from a legal space as well. So you can see in this particular picture, either you talk about regtech, you talk about fintech, insurance, business finance, debt collection, general purpose predictive analytics. All these areas, artificial intelligence is making an inroad. So the bottom line is that today's lawyer needs to understand these concepts very, very clearly, because we cannot afford to be, not understanding that how these systems work, how these technology work, because the practice of tomorrow is going to be AI-driven, AI-focused. This is just, I thought that I will just introduce this pro bono services. So this was the first, robo lawyer do not pay. We know about it. So in this area also, there is a huge amount of work which can happen, because we see that a lot of people are not having access to justice, which they should have. And probably the artificial intelligence system and government, if works in this area, can be helpful to the poor lawyers. So this is what I had from my side. Ethics and law, I will leave because I am already, over time. But if there are questions, I will be happy to answer them in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vijay Kumar Singh, for your insightful presentation. For our next speaker, it will be Associate Professor Dr. Harmahinder Singh, the head of school at Taylor's Law School. Associate Professor Dr. Harmahinder has served 17 years in the higher education industry in Malaysia in the areas of academic leadership and administration, teaching, and research. He has extensive experience in developing, facilitating, and supervised plans, policies, and strategies to grow the law school. He has been instrumental in formulating various teaching approaches for transformational legal education to groom students into individuals who can strive in the future work of work. I would like to invite Associate Professor Dr. Harmahinder Singh to share a presentation on artificial intelligence in the classroom, how AI is changing law schools.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you, Professor Dr. Vijay Kumar Singh, for that very enlightening opening part of this webinar. It taught me a thing or two in relation to narrow AI and general AI. So I would like to continue this discussion where Dr. Vijay left off, because he did say at the end of his segment that it is very important that law students or future lawyers know about these trends and are therefore ready for the challenges that will come ahead. So my segment of this webinar would be on artificial intelligence in the classroom, how AI is changing law schools. Although the entire webinar, the title of the entire webinar is focused on conversational AI, but I will go beyond just conversational AI and talk about how law schools have changed and how they should change in the future. So Dr. Vijay very nicely explained to us what is AI and how AI will complement the work of lawyers in the future. Perhaps if I were to look at a definition of AI that I can pick up for purposes of students to understand, this was the definition given by Microsoft as a set of technologies that would enable computers to perceive, learn, reason, and assist in decision-making to solve problems in ways that are similar to humans. So if these are going to be machines that are going to be making decisions that humans could make in 2040, when general AI comes in the picture fully, would lawyers then become redundant? Can the AI be trusted with complex decisions and tasks? And I think for my segment of the presentation, I would address the question that all students would have, which is, will my law degree then prepare me for this future? So what are the skills that are necessary, the knowledge, competencies that legal education will have to offer in a scenario where we have a landscape that is increasingly marked by digitalization, automation, and revolution in a constantly changing environment. So this slide talks about just my perspective of how the new challenges or new legal challenges will come about. And perhaps this is because of the shift that we would see from the circumstances of the society, from all sectors, and this would be the economic sector, the political sector, industry, creating complex intertwining and hyperconnectivity between humans and technology. And this will see a transformation of norms. It's already seeing a transformation of norms. And very recently, this was turbocharged by the pandemic, where social and societal transformation has taken place from a predominantly face-to-face society to a virtual society. And this will then necessitate the transformation of the service sector, where new innovations would lead new ways in providing service, perhaps in all sectors. And since we are here to speak about the legal services sector, perhaps we could focus on that. Now, so some of the examples where the new challenges would emerge, what sort of new challenges would emerge? So as Dr. Vijay has mentioned, he spoke about a few AIPs or AI programs which are already in the sphere of what we do in the legal sector. But perhaps from moving just away from Siri, Alexa, and ways that we use and so on and so forth, to concepts of facial recognition and the use of big data, perhaps, for investigation of written and spoken data, CCTV footage for evidence in criminal investigations. Now, this could bring about the question of how we look at the conventional way of dealing with evidence and criminal cases in our criminal justice system. We also could see autonomous vehicles. There are some countries who are already using this. Self-driving vehicles. So what happens when these vehicles cause an accident? So who would be responsible in our conventional way of looking at the thought of negligence? How would we then look at this particular circumstance? Would it be the person that created the vehicle or the person that programmed this vehicle to function in the way that it did? So to challenge the conventional way of looking at Donahue and Stevenson, perhaps. Another example is the use of drones. Is it a breach of privacy or is it required now for public surveillance? We have examples of drones being sent as an act of war, and this could also mean the breach of international law boundaries. Medical malpractice when lawyers rely on artificial intelligence to make diagnosis, for example, using scanning devices, right? Or AI as a juridical person or a legal personality in itself. Can AI in its extreme, in the form of an intelligent being, be recognized as a legal personality, someone that could own, or something that could own intellectual property, ownership in property, could run companies, could enter into contracts, or even become a citizen of a country in future? So we have issues surrounding autonomy, foreseeability, causation, etc., in circumstances when there's a malfunction, when there's a corrupted file, for example, and so on and so forth. We also have seen robots. We could also see robots drafting legislation. And in the extreme, of course, as I was discussing with my father just this morning, a band or chip that could be implanted in us to for automatic distribution of property at the point we stop breathing. So our family need not go through the entire exercise of the hassle of distribution of property after we move on. So financial markets and so on and so forth, and there are a whole load of examples on the transformation of the service sector. So are our students ready for this? Are our students ready for the various modes to guarantee authenticity and reliability through cryptography, blockchain, and so on and so forth in the future? So let me now take you through the next slide, which is basically what legal education has been looking like for the last many years, and what it still looks like, and what it should look like in the years to come. So generally, when we teach law, we deal with it as a retrospective epistemology, which is the mere delivery of theory and knowledge for purposes of knowledge acquisition by the students. We deal with it as a transmission of knowledge in the form of historical analysis of existing laws, regulation, and cases, which is essentially the examination of historical developments that enables resolution of conflicts and problems. And predominantly, the educator-student relationship has been hierarchical. So the educator is the one with the knowledge and the authority in the class, and the student is the subordinate and must respect that knowledge and authority. Or at least that's how the traditional law schools have functioned, and some law schools still function in this way. And we do see piecemeal appreciation of technology predominantly for purposes of research. So we use machine technology or databases like LexisNexis, Westlaw, and a whole load of other research tools for research within our law schools, or to ease our routine processes. So we have the various plugins for the LMS to ease our routine processes, and we create random modules to teach students about the law, or to teach students about the future of the law and how it would look like from the examples that I've mentioned earlier. Now, perhaps the desired state of how law schools would look like, and I would like to also reiterate that I'm not a fortune teller, and this is just my 2 cents worth based on the literature that I've read, and what a desired state of the law school would look like in these circumstances. And in the interest of time, obviously, I will have to skim through these pillars, as I call them, pillars 1 to 4, and basically to reiterate the fact again that when we receive students from the from high school coming into law school, and then we send them out into legal practice, law school should not be seen, or what we do in the law school should not be seen as the be it and end all. It's only the bridge from what we have received from high school and what we send off into practice. And I think what we can do for the student is about 20 to 40%, and 60 to 80% must come from their learning in the industry. But I think if they are equipped with the right skills, they would be able to adapt to the changes that will come, as we have said earlier, in this constantly changing environment, the new challenges that we would see. Now, these changes must not be piecemeal, and they have always been piecemeal because of the various regulatory requirements, perhaps, that we see both in institutions and from our professional bodies and regulatory authorities in our countries for legal education. But perhaps to look at it as overhaul of legal education, right? To ensure that we are able to prepare our graduates for the future. So there are 4 pillars as a summary of what I've read. So there are technological tools which we could use and which we are already using to facilitate teaching. Technological tools to facilitate lifelong learning, and this is where the skills for the students start to prepare them for the future. The structure and the curricula and the pedagogy of the curricula and the pedagogy, and the legal theory and the content of the curricula need to also be looked into. So perhaps the first item in the pillar, or desired state number 1, technological tools to facilitate teaching. And I think my peers in Taylor's Law School and in many other law schools are already doing a lot of this. So to use tools to eliminate routine tasks, encourage interactive and independent learning. So we have specialized digital learning interfaces. We have digitized libraries for with interactive features. We have digitized reference materials, as I mentioned earlier. We use innovative teaching techniques, a variety of tools for students' feedback, students' learning, interaction in classes, and so on and so forth. We use the Internet of Things for the various tasks to eliminate routine tasks. We are also adopting proctoring tools, as we have seen now because of the pandemic. Using AI for grading and marking may be a feature in the future. And the role of the academic will need to now evolve from a mere guru in the class, as a know-it-all in the class, to someone who is a co-learner or a coach. Now, pillar number 2, to facilitate lifelong learning. Now, this is obviously a skill set, a set of skills that students must acquire before they leave law school. So to ensure that they have a good command of the skills in doing legal research obviously being the most crucial skill that a lawyer could possibly have, right? And in these circumstances, as I mentioned earlier, digitized reference materials, AI innovations to predict outcomes, simulate solutions are all already in place and are being used. And perhaps the student's mindset needs to change from a very student-like mentality to a learner or a lifelong learner, to change to become a lifelong learner. in those circumstances. Now, curricula needs to be structured for interdisciplinary learning. So there should be elements of different disciplines within the fraternity. So it should not be a isolated discipline where students will learn just the law. They should be interacting with, in a structured manner, obviously, with students from different faculties on projects where they could solve real world problems. And we should be migrating from the thought solutions, TAUGH solutions, to solutions which are thought through. So from thought to thought solutions in those circumstances in the form of a revolving pedagogy. Now, legal theory obviously needs to be changing as well along the way. So the study of jurisprudence, legal methods, with this new impact of AI in the different areas of law, and perhaps to ensure that our students are also keeping abreast with technological developments to understand how these developments would work, how these tools function, and what are the challenges that these tools could bring about in the future. Now, this desired state, obviously, as I've skimmed through it, is not free of challenges. So there's a disparity, obviously, in the enrollment to the academic performance based on the socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, and gender. We have seen that even in the current situation. There's also unequal access to technology and broadband internet, which may impede the desired state of any law school. Now, the inability of academics to keep up to speed and even institutions to keep up to speed. So perhaps the concept of knowledge obsolescence, the lack of know-how, academics using these materials and these materials becoming redundant as we use them, and new tools are coming into play, also seem to be a feature, a reason for escalating cost in universities. And to ensure that maintenance of these tools are kept to benefit the students for purposes of continuous learning. Rethinking of the roles of educators. As I mentioned earlier, there has to be a shift in the mindset. And last but not least, there's always going to be a mismatch of expectations with regulatory authority and professional bodies in order for us to achieve this desired state. Now, this is the last slide that I had. I just wanted to say that I think from my perspective, law schools are already doing a lot to ensure that they keep up to speed or to bring the students up to speed to prepare them for the future. But I think perhaps we could, in a more structured manner, work towards the 4 pillars that I've mentioned so that our students will be ready to take up the challenges that we would see in the future to come. Thank you very much. Over back to you, Christina.
Thank you, Associate Professor Dr. Harmahinder Singh, for the thought-provoking presentation. For our next speaker, it will be Ms. Adeline Chin. Ms. Adeline Chin is a legal knowledge management consultant and legal tech evangelist. She is a co-founder of 3 legal-related companies, namely Law Tech Malaysia, Law Asia 365, and Cyrus Bookstore. A University of London law graduate and an MBA holder from Sydney Business School, Adeline has been trailblazing a progressive form of legal knowledge management since 2012. She has authored several white papers and publications relating to knowledge management and legal tech, and frequently speaks at conferences both domestically and abroad. In her capacity as a KM professional, Adeline has designed, spearheaded, and implemented innovative knowledge projects that humanize the law through infusion of technology. Adeline is named as at the top of the list of 30 people to watch in the business of law in Asia in 2021 by Asia Law Portal, and is the winner of the Distinguished Young Alumni Award 2021 awarded by the Malaysian Australian Alumni Council. I'd like to welcome Ms. Adeline Chin to make a presentation on the regulations of artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Christina. All right, now let me just share my screen really quickly. And let's get going. I realize that I'm the only non-academic here on the panel, so I will be supplementing what both the professors have spoken earlier, going a little deeper, but on a light-hearted manner. So I hope you guys would enjoy the session. Now let's talk about the regulation of AI. So what I want you to do is look at your screen right now and learn how to use the reactions, because I'm going to be asking a couple of questions throughout the session today, and you're going to give me the reaction if you remember something, if you know something, or if you support something, all right? Now, back in the days when we are in school, as in school, you would be asked by the teacher usually to write about the future. What would the future hold? What kind of technology would the future have? And one of it, really cliche, you would have written this in school, is flying cars. So for those of you who have written flying cars in their school essays about the future, please give me a thumbs up. So now the flying car is currently a real thing, and it's very, very recent. Last month alone, in January 2022, the Slovak Transport Authority has given a certificate of airworthiness to a flying car model called the Air Car. It's actually a hybrid car, and it runs with a BMW engine, and you use just regular petrol pump fuel to run it. So the future is coming, and it's coming really quick. Not far back, we've also got the robot maid. You've written about this because you don't want to make your bed in the morning when you wake up. You want somebody to make breakfast for you once you get up, right? So we have the robot maid as well. And this was ideated by MIT's Computer Science and AI Lab back in 2016. So laziness is an amazing thing. You know, when they were developing this robot maid, they also wanted to train the robot maid with an AI. And they wanted the AI capability to do way more than just coding. They wanted to be able to feed the robot maid with videos so that the robot can learn from, say, a YouTube video and learn how to vacuum properly, learn how to do your dishes properly, learn how not to break your mother's china. And the last thing, the most cliche, is the meal in a pill. How many of you have written this in your essay? Give me a heart emoji, right? So this meal in a pill, you won't believe it if I tell you, is actually based on a fantasy novel from the 1930s. Look it up. Google runs on AI. It will find the right thing for you. It is really cliche, but why are we not eating them now? My point is, there are things that technology and AI can bring to the table and we could use, but there are also things that we don't really want. And that's why we're on this topic today. AI has also seeped into the legal profession, right? And some of the things that has been done apart from what Dr. Vijay has put forth earlier would be things like intelligent contracts. One of the intelligent contracts that are out there that's really useful is called clause, as in clause, an agreement. It develops, basically it could perform itself. It's developed using an AI that can track the location of goods and trigger an auto release of funds. So as of June last year, clause has merged with DocuSign, another platform that also functions based on AI that allows you to sign your documents digitally and you can send it across the world, right? So the second thing that also currently uses AI is AI sentencing. Now, the courts in Peninsular Malaysia has implemented AI sentencing on the 23rd of July last year, and they have been following the footsteps of the Magistrates and Sessions Court in Sabah and Sarawak, implemented AI sentencing much earlier, back in February 2020, right before we entered the MCO. This has drawn quite a bit of flack, and it's not just from Malaysia alone, it is across the board. Well, there is also a tool called Compass that is an AI sentencing tool used in the state of Wisconsin back in 2016. Now, Compass is a risk assessment tool. And in a while, I'm going to show you what kind of questions that an AI like Compass would ask and use to determine the credibility of a person and how severe the punishment should be on a criminal, for instance. So look into the case of Wisconsin against Loomis in 2016, and that case has been on appeal a couple of times, and Mr. Loomis unfortunately have lost the case. His case was determined based on the Compass AI, and it's an assessment tag. The one last thing that I want to introduce to you is virtual courts. Obviously, Malaysia has gone into the virtual court scene as well. We have been using e-hearing since MCO started. Well, now the virtual courts is a concept that is aimed at eliminating the presence of a litigant or lawyer in the court, and also for the adjudication of cases on a virtual platform, like what we are doing right now. Right?
Sorry, Adeline, to interrupt, but we can only see the first slide.
Oh, okay. You can only see the first slide. I mean,
Okay, now it's moving.
oh, okay. All right. So now back to virtual courts. The pandemic has brought the concept of virtual courts to life, and right now it has been implemented in multiple jurisdictions, including here in Malaysia, in China, in India, UK, US, Germany, Gambia, Russia, Canada, Brazil, so many more, basically all across the world. Now, what I want to show you is a video on what kind of questions, this is a sample list of questions that Compass has asked in the case of Wisconsin against Loomis. All right, so as you can see in the case that uses AI sentencing, like the case of Wisconsin against Loomis, we usually would find that it is more than just asking whether a person has committed a crime before, whether a person is male, female, or gender fluid, the socioeconomic background and the education background that a person comes from. They also take into account many other factors such as anger, happiness, stability, and many, many more. Now, let's talk a little bit more about AI. In 1933, in the Chicago World's Fair, their motto is science finds, industry applies, and man conforms. And that is almost similar to what has been happening to AI, including to all our industries, legal, finance, manufacturing, and everything else. The one person who has a lot to say about AI is no other than Elon Musk. Now he says, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. In all the stories where there's the guy with the pentagram and the holy water, it's like, yeah, he's sure he can control the demon. Doesn't work out. Is this really the case? Is this the reason why we need regulation? Not necessarily so. We have been using AI rather comfortably in a number of things in our lives. So I'm just going to name a few, 10 to be exact. We have our Face ID on our phone when you want to unlock it. This is so that people couldn't steal your identity and couldn't steal data from your phone. You have social media. You've gotten targeted advertisements. Sorry. Let me check my slides here. Is it okay now?
Yes, now we can see the top 10 AI users.
Okay. So now we are on Face ID. So on social media, it's not only artificial intelligence working behind the scene just to personalize everything that you see on your feed, like your advertisements, things from your browsing history, but it's also helping you figure out friend suggestions, for instance. It's also helping you to identify and filter out fake news. And machine learning is working to prevent things like cyberbullying. There are your emails and messages, your autocorrects, your Google search, your smart home devices. And of course, AI is used in banking, where it is deployed to secure your data, to secure your identity, and of course, to detect fraud. There's also in shopping, obviously, and streaming, like Netflix. So fun fact is, Netflix recommendation engine is powered by AI, and it uses your past viewing history to deliver suggestions on what you may want to watch. This includes your genres that you like to watch, the kind of actors, time periods, and more. In fact, actually 80% of what we are watching is driven by Netflix recommendation. So there are some top myths about advanced AI. What is advanced AI? Advanced AI is what Dr. Vijay has mentioned earlier. It is the general AI, the strong AI. What's the difference between a general AI and your weak AI? The difference is weak AI helps you to do narrow human tasks. So if you want to ask your AI to say, get me a glass of water, that instruction basically goes as, go up to the cabinet, open the cabinet door, take down the glass, bring the glass over to the tap, fill up the tap, and bring that glass to me. So these are all weak AI. It is very task centric, but general AI or strong AI is something that could think like you do. You would have a gazillion thoughts in your mind right now, and that's exactly how a general AI can perform. So those are advanced AI. So these are the top myths, right? We talk about superintelligence by 2100 is inevitable, but in fact, it may happen in decades because we are not quite there yet. And even if we are there, it would take quite a number of years to try to regulate it. We talk about only Luddites would worry about AI, but in fact, a lot of top AI researchers are concerned. Academicians are concerned, and that's why we're here today, isn't it? And there's also mythical worry that AI will turn evil. Generally, AI is turning more competent. It's only the goals that are misaligned that could be a danger. Other concerns and myths, robots are the main concern. And again, it's also misaligned intelligence that's the main concern. Apart from that, where there's a myth saying that AI can't control humans, the fact is, intelligence enables control. We control tigers by being smarter, not by being stronger or faster. Machines can't have goals, that's another myth. But the fun fact is, a heat-seeking missile has a goal, and we better hope that that goal is not us. Last one, superintelligence is just years away. But the real thing is it's actually at least decades away, but it may take that long to make it safe. So we back to Elon Musk on why we need regulation. And I think he does have some valid points. If you dig into it, it's going to be opening a can of worms. So I shall just quote this line. I think we should be very careful about artificial intelligence. If I had to guess at what our biggest existential threat is, it's probably that. So we need to be very careful. I'm increasingly inclined to think that there should be some regulatory oversight, maybe at the national and international level, just to make sure that we don't do something very foolish. Now let's talk about the meat, regulation of AI itself. Why do we need to regulate AI? I've just summarized it into two, but we definitely have way more reasons to do so. The way to go around it is a whole different story altogether. Now, the two reasons that I came up with is firstly to preserve civil liberties, and the second one is to protect human rights. to preserve civil liberties is because governments and companies are currently already using AI to take decisions that can have significant impact on our lives. Going to Mars, populating Mars, self-driving cars, they all have an impact on our lives. The society is invested in safety measures to ensure that the quality and unbiased nature of the data feed is there. And in terms of human rights, when a decision made affects people like you and me, the decision makers have to be accountable for the impact caused, in sync with the way societal laws have been established throughout modern civilization. Now, let me show you how AI has been regulated in the US. So in the state of Alabama, they have enacted AI back in some laws related to AI back in 2021. And Alabama is not the only state. There are at least 17 states in the US, and some have been enacted in also Colorado, Illinois, and Mississippi. Washington as well. Now in Texas, they actually enacted a legislation regarding with AI back in 2019. So that's a couple of years ago. As you can see on your screen, AI seeps into many different facets of the economy, many different layers in the societal fabric. It can be to talk about regulations on fiscal operating apportionments for think tanks, for instance, or work group, like in Washington. It could be, say, to amend the AI Video Interview Act. So this is about employment, how you select your employees, whether you use AI appropriately to hire, so on and so forth, tons of it. So let's talk about risk assessment. So Dr. Harmahinder has talked about this as well, whether there is a separate legal entity for AI. And despite the hype on AI, it is still unusual for a legal system to confer separate legal personality on AI. And this is severely important for the regulation of AI. Now let's talk about the English law. In English common law, an automated system, even a robot itself, cannot be regarded as an agent, and hence only a person with a mind can be an agent in law. The US position is similar to the English law. And in Germany, in the context of contract formation, according to their Federal Supreme Court case law and German legal literature, machines and softwares cannot make a valid declaration of intent. And hence, they are not persons and are not separate legal entities. Now, if you say that AI cannot be a separate legal entity and cannot hold any form of liability to be regulated in the first place, what about this? Back in 2015, in Switzerland, a bot named Random Darkness Shopper was given $100 of Bitcoin to spend for a week. And it uses algorithmic decision-making in order to probably make the most profit out of the $100. So what the bot did was it used the Bitcoin to buy drugs and a Hungarian passport over the internet. And the bot and its purchases were seized by the Swiss police. You can't sue the bot still. Question is, who can you sue? You can sue the paymaster or the designer, the person who writes the AI design technical and functional specifications. You can sue the distributor or the licenser, right? Or you can sue the trainer, the person who actually trains the AI through machine learning or who supplies the data sets to train it. Now that plays a huge part, especially in AI sentencing and e-discovery platforms. Either that, or you can sue the installer, the person who integrates and installs or configures the systems on the hardware for you. Last but not least, liability on the owner or the operator. Now, regulation in relation to AI could include this, either the technology itself, or it can be industry specific, let's say for autonomous vehicles, Or it could be self-regulation, for example, voluntary codes of practice or a combination of all the above. So in current times, the European Parliament has actually adopted a resolution on civil law rules relating to robotics, and it technically provides a guiding ethical framework on how robotics and AI can be regulated. There are also more loose-based kind of regulation for AI, such as from other organizations like the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, and also Oxford University's towards a code of ethics for AI research projects. And they are working to develop codes of ethical practice in relation to AI. So it's more loose-based, more grassroots-based. Also, very recently, on the 21st of April in 2021, the EU Commission also proposed for a new AI Act, and the objectives are this: to ensure that AI systems placed on the union market and used are safe and respect laws on fundamental rights and the union values. Also, to ensure legal certainty, to facilitate investments and innovation in AI. We don't want regulation to strangle innovation, and we also don't want regulation to stifle the growth financially for AI products. The objectives also include to enhance governance and effective enforcement of laws on AI systems. Also to facilitate the development of single market for lawful, safe, and trustworthy AI applications. Now, in general, the snapshot for this proposal is it actually takes a risk-based approach. The bigger the risk that a certain use of AI creates for our freedom, the more obligation on the authority or company to be transparent about how the algorithm works and report to the regulators on how it has been used. If you want to know how this is going, ask Mark Zuckerberg. Second one is the draft suggests making it illegal to use AI for certain purposes. Considered unacceptable. Now, this word unacceptable is used very vaguely, so there are a lot of loopholes around it. There are a lot of go-arounds. And this includes facial recognition technologies, AI system used for social scoring, which rank people based on their trustworthiness, is something that China has explored, and systems that manipulate people or exploit vulnerabilities of specific groups. For instance, shopping online. If you want to read the entire paper, you could scan the QR code right here. We good? So, potential impact of AI regulation. As I mentioned earlier, stifle innovation and also baseless winner selection. Those with deeper pockets would tend to gain a bigger chunk of the pie for AI, and startups tend to have a more difficult time to achieve success. Last but not least, more ethical issues coming up as well. Ineffective, erratic, and uneven regulatory efforts or enforcement may also lead to unintended ethics issues. And that is all time we have for today. I hope you enjoyed the talk. So I will hand the screen back right now.
Thank you, Adeline. So we'll just give it 2 minutes for more questions to come in. Okay, let's start with the first question. So the first question is from Professor Dr. Nurma Haliza to Professor Vijay. In big data related to frame problem, do you think law has taken a big role in predictive analytics?
Thank you for that question. I think a bit of a more clarity would be required in terms of what response is being sought. Because if I look at the big data issue, big data has a plenty of issues around it, whether it is collection of data is concerned, or you are talking about the data which is skewed because if you are utilizing that data for training of machine learning or using the skewed data for training the AI machines, probably that is going to give you skewed result. That is one of the major challenges which is being talked about. Adeline talked about an important issue at the end of her presentation was competition. So that is unfair competition is something which is also emerging out of these issues, because if someone has a first mover advantage and they have that particular data with them, they have what I should say, and we cannot call it on the face of it unfair, but if that is misutilized, then probably that is unfair. So these are the gray areas in the big data space. But if the question may be clarified, I would be happy to answer it further. It was a very nice presentation, Adeline, and it was really insightful. A lot of things which you brought forward.
Thank you, Dr. Vijay. Likewise.
So here, there's one more question. What are your expectations towards legal sector in dealing with the fast growing of AI?
So I think Adeline, you would like to take this from like a industry perspective. Let me answer it as a professor. So what I am looking at it in India, and I can give you the Indian perspective because I am looking at the legal industry here. I believe it is not very fast growth as far as AI is concerned. It is very, very slow as far as legal sector is concerned. People are very skeptical. There are hundreds of law firms, and I believe only one or two law firms are utilizing this, that too for a very small segment of their work, which relates to due diligence and that. We are yet to see the full implementation of AI. And I personally believe that the moment the government starts involving itself into its processes, so the ramp up in the AI use and technology will be only seen when government has a skin in it, or when they start doing it as a reg tech. For an example, I will tell you on cryptocurrency, we are yet to take a call on that, though we have taxed it now. But in terms of the regulations, there is still a no-go area in terms of the regulation. So probably in the blockchain technology, it will require some amount of support from the government to allow it to happen. So it is mostly in the sandbox area right now. So people are experimenting, and that too in a weak AI, but a lot of the things are not allowed to be experimented at present. So this is what is my understanding from the academic point of view.
Thank you, Dr. Vijay. I will expand a little bit further, but I second Dr. Vijay's views. It is not as advanced as we would like it to be. So in the legal sector, we, from a consultancy, from a business perspective, also as a service provider for legal professionals, we are actually looking for law firms and legal professionals to pick up simple technologies, learning how to use your Excel properly, picking up things like law firm accounting, things like practice management systems, and none of those actually implements the AI. We don't need to use AI properly yet. Even document management system is something that is still growing in the legal practice scene. And the most basic document management system doesn't even require the usage of AI. So it is a long way to go until the legal sector is fully steeped in the usage of AI, I would say. We would wait until probably our Malaysian legal practice get rid of fax as a mode of communication, and then we'll probably speak further.
Thank you. There's another question directed to Professor Dr. Harmahinder with regards to using AI for grading and marketing assessments. Has it been implemented at Taylor's University? Should all final exams be conducted online and marked online to drive the use of AI at university level?
Thank you for that question. I'm actually thinking of an answer. The first question is, has it been implemented in Taylor's University? Not yet. When will it be implemented. I hope soon, because marking is actually one of the most tedious tasks of an academic. I would think so. But there are a lot of challenges around this. Obviously, two main challenges is the acquisition of the right tool for grading and marking. And number two, to ensure that there is know-how on the usage of this tool, to use it accurately and correctly to ensure that marking can be done. Now, this would mean that we would have to move away from the conventional type of questioning during the exams, or the conventional type of assessments, because there could be certain types of assessments which may not be as accurately graded at the moment with the tools that we have for purposes of marking and grading. So that's my answer. I don't know whether it fully answers your question. I would like to see an AI tool being used for grading and marking assessments, definitely, because academics could then focus on other things like research and so on and so forth, rather than to use that time that they have for grading and marking of assessments. Grading and marking of assessments can also be done perhaps credibly and more fairly with such tools. I don't know. I've never used one personally, but I'm sure there are a lot of tools in the market which we can explore, and the university is currently exploring for use in the near future.
If I may.
In fact,
Yes.
on this, Professor Harmahinder, I think we should have soon some robots to take care of this examination hall things.
Yes, yes, indeed.
That is more
for
required.
invigilation purposes.
For
yes,
invigilation
indeed.
purposes, yeah.
Yes, that's right. Sorry, Adeline, you were about to say something.
So there's already an AI tool that was used for scoring, and it's been used in the UK. So maybe I will share the link with you a bit later so you can look into it.
Yes, please. Yes. We'll be happy to explore that and see what can be done in that front. Yeah.
So there's one question for Adeline. How ready are Malaysian lawyers to integrate AI into the legal practice?
I think the readiness level differs a lot, either based on where the lawyer was trained and the kind of environment the lawyer has kind of practiced in throughout his career, or his or her career. So I would say on a general scale, we are not very ready for AI yet. It is still something of the future in the legal practice here in Malaysia, I would say. We are still looking to have more automation, not AI yet, but automation of workflow, how you do your proper contract management, how you do your proper document management, even how you manage your client relationship systems. So if we can properly do workflow automation within the legal practice, then AI would be something great to be added on.
Thank you. There's another question for Dr. Harmahinder and Professor Vijay. What are your opinions in delivering legal education in metaverse?
I'll let Dr. Vijay go first.
Yeah. So I would suggest that as we have deliberated already, in the legal education space, I believe we are still at a very, very initial phase. So I think metaverse is too far beyond to talk about this. It is more about technology. So in a metaverse, if you are visualizing probably you can visualize a classroom in your home. If that is what is your question, then you can think about it. Maybe a technology like that comes. But from a perspective of regulation, what I find is that there are only three modes of looking at it. Either you can take care of any new technology with the existing regulations or existing laws, or you can have a specified laws for the new technology, say for example metaverse you are talking about, or it can be a mix of it. So these are the three ways by which we look at regulating anything which is new, which comes new. From a law perspective, I believe at every point in time, the major questions which will be required to be dealt with would be the ethical issues, would be the constitutional issues, because it is about the right of the individual vis-a-vis the right of, or vis-a-vis the technology adaptation, which we are talking about. So this is what is my perspective on this dimension. New technologies, I believe, must be allowed to be experimented, but within the confines of tight regulation. This is what is my understanding on this.
I would like to echo what Professor Vijay has said. So we are still grappling with the technology that we currently have. And I think the readiness to adopt perhaps more sophisticated technology like metaverse is something that will take time for our academics to adopt, at least from an educational institutions point of view. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. One last question. It has been suggested that AI may one day be regarded as a legal entity. That would mean that AI would be subject to rights and liabilities as if it were a human being. On the issue of liabilities, how would the law enforce such liabilities, whether criminal or civil? Do the parties have any?
Yeah, so on this, I would like to just give you an example of the corporations or companies. So it is not a situation that for the first time you will be giving a legal right to an entity. So we already have a system by which we are giving legal rights to the corporations or legal entities, right? So there is already a jurisprudence existing, but if you see the corporate criminal liability, you already find that there is no mens rea. So you cannot find mens rea of the corporation. That has to be drawn through the humans. So I really doubt that whether at any point in time there will be a situation wherein you will be determining mens rea of a computer or a robot or an AI system. At the end, you have to trace back to some individual who has either devised it. And Adeline has adequately covered in one of her slides about the liability issue. I believe, Adeline, you would like to supplement this answer.
I agree with what Dr. Vijay has just mentioned. But in the very rare case, like say we are at 2060 and there is super intelligence already, and they can have the capacity to have mens rea, it still goes back to who put in the data in the first place. So yeah, that's already covered in the slide earlier. I would be happy to share that slide.
Thank you so much. So I'll pass the session to Sophia.
All right, thank you so much, Christina, as well as our esteemed speakers for sharing their insight, thoughts, research, and findings with regards to today's presentation. This actually marks the end of today's webinar. But before I let everyone leave this webinar, I would like to share that Taylor's Law School, we have our in-house journal called CRELDA, which stands for Center for Research in Law and Development in Asia. So we would like to invite all academics from various countries who are here with us today to contribute your research as well as writing pertaining to either AI or any law-related area to CRELDA so that we can disseminate all your research finding as well. So feel free to visit CRELDA website at www.crelda.org if you like more information with regards to the submission of your articles. Okay, so now is the time for photo session. If I may invite all guests to switch on their camera so that we can take pictures with all the participants who are here today. Let's give everyone 1 second. Okay. If everyone can give your best smile. All right, I'm changing the setting here to gallery. And on a count to 3. 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, smile. Okay, thank you so much everyone for being attentive to this sharing session. I hope all of you will enjoy your Saturday today. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Professor Vijay. Thank you, Adeline. Christina, thank you so much. Thank you, Sophia.
Thank you, everyone.